Hiya, Benchmates. This is Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of the International Plastic Modelers Society UK. Benchmates, please welcome your hosts Paul Pendleton-Brown, Mike Baldwin, Mark Housley, Tim Mulvial, James Nevitt, and Paul Wong. And we are joined this episode by Luke Flynn from the Mach Models-YouTube channel.
Hi Benchmates and welcome to episode 5 of Beyond the Box Art, now officially flying the flag as the official podcast of IPMS UK. Yep, you heard that right, we're absolutely honoured to be recognised by the society that started the worldwide set of organisations, and we're fired up to help keep IPMS members up to speed on news and developments, plus updates on Scale Model World at Telford. Last episode we had the pleasure of sitting down with Paul Regan, President of IPMS, to talk about the roots of society, its role in shaping modelling worldwide, and what the future holds. If you missed that, go back and check it out. It's a brilliant deep dive into the very heart of the organisation. In this episode we have all the normal features plus the next edition of Wong is Wisdom. This time he covers how to create cheap snow effects on dioramas, etc. We're also joined by Luke Flynn from the Mach Models-YouTube channel, who's going to give us the behind the scenes gossip on running his channel and the technical challenges of literally modelling under the spotlight. So whether you're gluing seams, masking canopies or just procrastinating with style, settle in. This is Beyond the Box Art, and episode 5 starts now. So let's get started with work in progress and what's on your bench. Wongy, Catamaran still in dry dock or Star Wars Bandai goodness on the bench?
Well, what can I say, but the catamaran is all at sea. So what's happened is I've lost love with it. So, and the mojo's gone a little bit on that one because I've looked at loads of reference photos online and just depressed myself. So what can I do but cheer myself up with a really easy kit? What I have done is I've gone into the loft, got myself out a very small kit in terms of parts, and you're going to like this one. 15 parts of a Harrier T4, and it's from a brand which doesn't exist anymore called Bobcat. It's the outline of a twin seat Harrier, which is absolutely superb, and everything is molded in place. 15 parts, as I said before, went together absolutely superbly, and a little bit of, bit of filler, but otherwise, no, it's good. The canopy's great. I showed Mark today, and even he was quite impressed.
Very impressed with it, yep.
There's that one, and in terms of other kit builds, obviously I had my snow speeder from the last episode. That's ready, masked up, ready to go to paint, and that's about it, really.
Was that Harrier the original Hella one?
It was, yes.
I was going to say, I remember building that back in the day.
It was nice and easy. It virtually snapped together because the locating pins were the size of a dustbin.
What's that nose off? What's the nose based off? Is that like a GR3 or something?
It's a GR3 nose. Yeah, T4.
T4 had the LRM-TS nose, which was the laser rangefinder. So basically the same as the GR3. But yes, it was the original Hella Humbrol Bobcat release.
Superb
back in 1983.
Oh, there you go. A good year.
83. Wow.
I think I was in the middle of my A-levels then, but there you
Yeah,
go.
I wasn't born then.
I was 20.
James was just a twinkle.
Yeah, that's right.
No comments.
Yeah, indeed. But in terms of the kit, now that I've built that one, because it didn't take too long at all, I've been looking at others online, just having a little gaze, and I see Kinetic have one. So I might actually open the wallet. I know it you know, there might be a couple of creaking noises coming out of that one.
I actually quite fancy the 48th VAAC version they do. The red, white and blue, the Raspberry Ripple.
It's more than 60 parts longer.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's in fact, that's a really nice scheme, but I don't know if anyone does the 72 scale decal.
So I'd do a 72
Oh, right. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
as well. I think they do a couple of different ones. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on the Harrier. I don't know. I wouldn't know a T1 from a T10. So,
But yeah, I'm looking into it because I do quite like the look of the twin seater.
I thought it was difficult to get hold of the twin seater from Kinetic in 48. I bet it's going to cost you a few quid in it as well.
Well, yeah, it's one of those where, and we'll come to it later. I did nab a bargain this week, but not on that one.
Well, you could always go to the decal bank for IPMS and ask what Harrier T4 decals there are in 72nd, because I know Model Decal most definitely did some.
Do you know what? I might tap them on the shoulders because this particular kit didn't actually come with any decals. It was one of those baggy up ones where I think it might be called an estate clear out.
Have you checked Canon?
I've not yet, no, but I'll give them a whirl as well.
Combat Decals, sheet CD 72005.
Oh, there you go.
They did the VAAC Harrier.
It's such a nice looking.
You can't beat a good Raspberry Ripple scheme.
Oh, a Raspberry Ripple.
And for those outside of the UK, that's the red, white and blue test scheme that most of our test aircraft held in the 80s and 90s.
Was that Boscombe Down, was it?
Yes.
Sorry, Mark, I'm not going to do the wrap round then, in that case.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
I might give that one. Yep, right, okay.
I'll let you off then.
I'll have to re-listen to the podcast to find out which particular decal number it was. Don't repeat it.
Not going to, don't worry. Not going to make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's true.
Got to get the viewer numbers up somehow.
Buy another one. Yeah, so that's all that I've done this week. But yeah, things are moving on. In terms of the catamaran, just to let you know, I'm actually scratch building some sailors for it. Yachts persons. But it's one of those things where in scratch building figures in 125 scale, again, you just can't find anything on the market so precise as yachts persons at 125 scale. So I've got to scratch build my own, which involves.
Are you converting these, or is it like, are you starting with an armature? And
I'm starting with a piece of wire. And
oh god,
yeah, I know it's one way.
And at that scale as well.
Yeah, but you can get away with it though, can't you?
Is there nothing 3D printing wise you could look at?
Well, funny enough, I was going to tap you on the shoulders, Nevs, and say to you, anything on Shapeways?
Nev to the rescue.
Yeah, there could be. Even if, like I said to Mark, even if it's not in the right scale, you just either bring it down or bring it up.
Yeah.
It's usually easier to bring them down because, like, we were talking to John at the weekend and he finds it hard bringing things down. But a lot of the time when it comes to things like that, scaling down is actually easier.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Certainly I'll be keeping an eye out on it. It saves me a job or two. But otherwise, I did actually make my first little stick figure out of bits of fuse wire, and it didn't look good. One arm was bigger than the other one. Obviously, he's been in an accident, and one leg was longer than the other one. So I was thinking about fabricating a wooden leg for him.
You can get I think this, if you said it's one, did you say it's 125?
Yeah.
Well, there's one 120 on eBay, and they're architects' figures.
Oh, right.
And you know, when you get architects that do all the model buildings and stuff, and they plonk little figures walking up and down the streets.
Right.
I've used them myself and converted them. You know, you chop an arm off one, a head off another, and that scale, like you say, you get away with an awful lot.
Yeah, because when you go down to, one 120, one 125.
There's nothing in it.
It's less than millimeters, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'll
and you get loads. You can literally get a bag full for a couple of quid.
Oh, right.
And they're all rip-offs of the Price. Is it Pricer?
Pricer.
The German, Pricer, the little German figures. So, and they're not that bad.
Oh, right. Okay.
Not that bad.
I'll take a look at that. I could have like a couple picnicking on my yacht.
Picnicking on a racing yacht. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Put a park bench on it as well at the back.
Yeah. On a racing, yeah.
And what have you spent your money on?
Right. So, I ventured onto a certain Facebook auction site where sniping is a professional game, and I actually got myself, in fact, I oversniped and I bought myself a...
Did you snipe yourself?
I did, actually. Right, so the closest to it at 1 minute to 8 was at £41, and I thought I'd snipe it good and proper, and I stuck in 59 quid to make sure that it got it. And I did get it.
Oh, you got one?
And the item is a Bandai General Grievous. Finally got one. And if you look on certain popular auction sites in the UK, they're going for like £120. I think I did quite well there, to be honest.
So what did you end up paying for it in the end?
With postage, 65 quid. So that was pretty good, to be honest.
Next question. Who's General Grievous?
Oh,
is it a Star Wars person by any chance?
Oh, right. Are we making this a 7-hour episode, by the way?
Compared to the last episode, that'll be close.
Answers on a postcard. General Grievous was the main protagonist against the Jedi during the Clone Wars. Is that succinct enough?
Yeah.
No. I need a description of the guy on the... Was he on the films then, yeah?
He was in the movies, yep, and he was in the Clone Wars animated series as well. Yeah, Nev's is smiling here because he's probably gone through the whole lot.
That's not the blue guy, is it, by any chance?
Well, no, not the blue guy.
It's a robot with 4 arms.
It's a robot with 4 arms. I didn't really watch the animated series.
He's a cyborg, isn't he?
He's a cyborg, that's it. Yeah, because he's got real organs, etc. He was basically a Jedi hunter. He kept the trophies of their lightsabers.
Trophies, yeah.
The view that I've got is I may light up
the lightsabers.
Fun with LEDs.
And that's another topic completely.
There's a good topic, isn't it? That's me done.
Right, moving on. Boulders.
Well,
very nice.
Considering we was on about meteors.
Blimey, you're quick.
Oh, that's the Hong Kong Models F4.
Especially as the first plastic only arrived in the country today.
Ah, right, okay.
I've got loads of aftermarket bits. It's got resin undercarriage, photo etch. And I've got a set of Fion decals as well. And they're very hard to get hold of.
You've not nicked mine, have you?
No. I've only got set 1, which is number 1 Squadron and 54 Squadron.
Or which one I've got?
So Red Squadron's got like a red V that comes out and goes across.
Is that plane going to be silver or is it a camo job?
High speed silver. So it's, all silver. I'm going to have to do some riveting.
Have you got a Rosie the Riveter?
I have indeed.
Oh, yeah, look at them.
Oh, blimey.
So I'm going to have to rivet because the detail to the 2 fuselage halves, because the gap's quite prolific, I'm going to have to sand it and then I'm going to have to carry the rivets back over. Thank God for dynamo tape.
When did you start building that, Mike?
Yesterday.
Jesus.
You did well.
That took long at all.
Yeah.
And as you can see behind,
you've had a tidy up.
The man cave's been reorganised.
It's very tidy.
It won't last.
Not like mine.
So everything's gone out of the room and then one's up above the shelf.
I was going to say, are you moving house looking at how clean that is?
He's gone for the minimalist look.
To be honest.
Just lean to one side, Mike. Where's the Hurricane, the pride and joy of your collection?
It needs to be rebuilt.
What have you done?
I didn't do anything. It was somebody else, but we won't go into that conversation.
Yeah. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, we've all been down that road.
Yeah, we've all been down that road. I know where it is. It just needs to be glued back together and reassembled.
Yeah, it's crash landed.
It's had more than that. That Hurricane's been through a lot because it had a hot cup of coffee spilt over it when it was literally put on the table. Got swilled with a hot cup of coffee.
Oh, that was Chopper, wasn't it?
Straight all over. Unfortunately, that was the late Chopper. Put his coffee down and it just tipped. All I can say is thank God for VMS varnish because it saved its bacon.
Ah, right, okay. What was it painted in? Enamels or
No, acrylic.
acrylics? All right. Stripped it off clean.
That protected it from the coffee.
Oh, right.
That, when it goes off, is bomb-proof. And you can notice a difference when you're spraying with it, especially if you've got a sheen on it. When you go over with the matte or the satin, it just changes colour completely, especially on RAF fighters. Very, very, very good stuff.
Okay. Have you made a decision on the intakes, if you're going to keep what was in the kit, or do you want to have a go with the ones I've got here?
How can they get it so wrong? It looks like a meteor, but then obviously if you've got aficionados that obviously... I don't know.
Are in this room.
That they're in this room. It's a bit of a nightmare.
Well, how bad is it?
I didn't realise there was an issue until Paul mentioned that the intakes are wrong on it on the F4.
And what correction is it, Paul? Whose is it? Is it?
I've got a spare set of the Fisher model ones from Hall in the States.
They're worth the weight in gold then, mate.
Yeah, I know, but I'm willing to mic a set. But just as a quick update, Luke has sent me some photographs today, which unfortunately I'm not allowed to share. The first mouldings for the F8 have arrived in the country.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And literally, as we're recording this, Luke is sat at a bench making the first build.
Oh, and how do they look?
The mouldings that he sent me the photographs of look brilliant. Okay, so have you actually put your hand in your pocket?
Nope, I've not spent a penny.
You've been good.
I have. I've been very, 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 very good.
It's the second episode on the run.
I know. No, I'm building up the stash.
Good point. You're bringing it to a survivable level.
Yeah, well,
where you'll outlast it, as opposed to...
You want to see what's got to go in the loft.
Have you structurally reinforced your loft?
I sort of got to after the incident with the Titanic came down and smacked me in the face. So how it came out, I do not know. But that's not going back in the loft. Sailed. I think it had actually hit the iceberg and sunk the way it came down.
Started to go down. It's all these little figurines jumping off.
But it's not that. It hit me right on the bridge of the nose and it just made me smart. The air was blue, is all I'm going to say.
I said, as it looks like it's made your nose slightly bigger. Right, bit of a boink.
The Concorde conversion. Tim, what have you been working on?
Well, the Shelf of Doom has been more of a revolving door of doom. Furloughed Jaguar, still there. And I've been working on my Corsair A7, which is a Hobby Boss 172. And I'm chosen the second scheme, which is a Greek Air Force. And I've gone with a dirty sort of finish.
And what have you been spending your money on?
Well, I've been spending my money. I've sniped again, like Mr. Wong there. Within a minute to go, I sniped 2 cars. They are Airfix starter kits, and there is a Fiesta RS, and the I've got it written down here because my memory is terrible. The Aston Martin DBR9. It's a bit of a change now. Got them for less than, well, I got them for £16 for the 2, which is okay. They are available on another site, but I didn't want to, finance a lavish Venetian wedding. So I sniped in there. So I'm looking forward to that. I did come across a guy actually making one on YouTube today. He just used a hairy stick and the paints from the kit, and he looked as though he was having one hell of a time. So a little bit of a lesson there for modelers who just do it for the hell of it. So it's not struggle. He did a very good job and some very interesting decals, which I would have sworn at. But it looked really good for a hairy stick job. But I've also been working on a Spitfire, which is 148 Academy. Again, getting notes. That's the 14C. And it comes with decals that I remember Mike saying this, Mike Baldwin there, that it would be like gluing on a crisp packet onto the fuselage. Because, again, I'm just holding that up. If you look at the fuselage decal, and I say decal in the singular, there is all the information there, the number, the invasion stripes, the Randall, and the little green band at the back. Don't know what that's called. So that's kind of 5 decals in one. So if that goes wrong, then
It goes terribly wrong.
Then it goes terribly wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah, careful placement with that one, Tim.
I did a test sort of run with the Roundel, which is missing from there, and they got on a mule, and that looks okay. So I'm confident, quietly confident. So that's me. That's me for this week.
Nevs, what's on your bench?
So still building the Kinugasa, the cruiser. So obviously I know we're audio only, but I've managed to get the first part of the superstructure on the front there. So it's starting to look all right. I'm wanting to add something else to the bench, probably an aircraft. Last week I bought some of my own bases. I'm going to do almost like Wongi's
Coffee Coaster Challenge.
coffee coaster, but I've got them in hexagonal with some Perspex rods. So I'm going to do a proper base for them rather than the little Airfix ones I've got now. I'm going to sort of convert because I've got a few builds I want to do. So I've got a Nell, the Japanese bomber, one of them waiting to build. But like I said about the MiG paints, I don't know whether to hold off until I've got some accurate paints for it or a little Spitfire kit of some description. So something like that probably get built in the next week or so.
And that combines with what you've been spending your money on as well, then.
I've been doing a bit of 3D printing, so I've bought some files for Japanese infantry, Japanese paratroopers, which are really interesting. And then I'm looking for a couple of Academy aircraft carriers of the Enterprise in Yorktown. So Models for Sale but their website has crashed on them. So I was thinking, has the business gone in a flash?
No, Vinny's definitely not gone. It's definitely not gone.
No, but they've put a Facebook post. They've put a Facebook post up today saying we're having ongoing issues, and their emails down as well. So the people are panicking, but they've got the Enterprise in Yorktown cheaper than anyone else, I think, at the moment. And I've been wanting them for a while, so that's what I'm looking for.
What scale is that one then?
700. So Academy have got 2. Full hull, obviously. Full hull with full hangar, because I like to do the hangar deck as well. So they've got the Enterprise in Yorktown. When they first brought it out, they said it's probably one of the most accurate depictions of it, because the Enterprise they said it's such a niche time. They did the Enterprise before the Yorktown. It's literally as it's on its way to Midway, so it is the Midway fit of the Enterprise.
Ah, right.
Whereas if you look at something like Tamiya, theirs is, it's a bit of 41, it's got a bit of 42, it's got a bit of 45 in there. It's just like a zombie, like a Frankenstein model, whereas the one from Academy, it is literally for May and June of 1942.
So it's quite precise and specific to an era and a month and a date, as opposed to, like you said, this Frankenstein kit coming through.
I think a lot of ship models are, though, aren't they? Go with the years and stuff.
Yeah, obviously the ones from Flyhawk, like we were talking about in the stash report for episode 4, they are trying to get a bit more specific. But like I say, with the Academy one, when it was on its way to Midway, it had part of the old, anti-aircraft suite with, the 1.1 inch guns, and then it had, your new Bofors and Orkans as well. So it's probably the right thing to do it for Midway, so I want to do that. And Yorktown is one of my favourites as well, so I want to get both.
You need to do them on a seascape.
Yeah. Funny enough, there's a really good podcast that tells you how to do it. I was going to ask you, because you're quite knowledgeable and I'm not, which was the US aircraft carrier was double built really quick. I think it was still being built as it was like 3 days or 4 days to turn it around and get it out. Yeah, construction guys still on it, and they were going to drop them off, weren't they?
I want to say the Wasp.
Was it the Wasp?
I've got a funny feeling it was the Wasp, but I could be completely wrong on that one.
The Yorktown, they span around in 2 to 3 days, but that was in terms of damage. So at Pearl it repairs because it limped all the way back from Coral Sea to Pearl Harbor. It was very neat. The Japanese thought they'd sunk it at Coral Sea. It was that badly damaged. Made it back, and Halsey said, I need it in 48 hours. So I don't know if it had crews still on it, but essentially they just put wooden planks over the massive holes in the deck.
Oh, blimey.
I think you might be on about the Intrepid, because the Intrepid was having its shakedown trials while it went out to sea, while they were going.
While they're still doing it, yeah.
While they were still doing it.
For me, it's fascinating how in times of emergencies, how suddenly you can just knock these out of the park and really go for it. And then during more peaceful times, it's like manana, isn't it?
It was like the freighters, the US Navy troop freighters, like the USS John Brown. They would be the Liberty class. They were being knocked out within days.
Didn't they get one out in a day? Didn't they do one in 24 hours or something like that?
It was definitely an average of one every 24 hours, as in one was...
And that's an average.
The only issues with them is they were flat bottomed, so they were prone to cracking. There's one just off the edge of the Thames estuary that's fully laden with ordnance that is ready to go at any point.
Oh, yeah. They reckon that's going to make a mess if it ever does go up.
Well, every window's going to go in so many mile radius.
Okay, well, let's move on then. Mark.
On my bench at the moment is a little 72nd scale Grant tank, an M3 Mark 1. It's not the easiest thing it's a Mirage kit, so it's quite basic and it's accurate, but too bad. And that's about it. And regarding anything I bought, nothing. I haven't spent any since the last time I was on.
So you didn't buy anything in Halifax then?
Oh, God, I did. You're right.
Yeah, slight prompt.
My memory. Yeah, the old Barracuda, the Trumpy Barracuda. It does look really good, to be honest with you. It really does look nice. To the point where I nearly felt like a 13-year-old again when I opened it up and got it out of the bags thinking, I'm going to do this now. I need to do this.
I thought he'd started it.
Build it now, before tea.
For once, I've actually managed to get some modelling in as well. Having had a day off, been sat here working on the Airfix Anson, which I've been working on for some time now. And it's finally starting to get some progress towards the finishing line. So be glad to get that one across the board. And also, as far as spending, I've bought a AMK 148 Fuga Magister.
Ooh, the French thing.
Yes, nice little kit. And it's completely, the detail on it is ridiculous to the fact that they've actually included a completely clear fuselage as well as ordinary fuselage. So if you want to, you can actually see all the interior detail.
Have they done anything since? Because the last thing that I remember them doing was the MiG-31, was it?
No, it was their 14 Tomcats.
As if we didn't have enough.
Theirs was announced before Tamiya's.
Okay.
But theirs was...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, theirs was engineered, and then Great Wall Lobby went, no, we'll bring out another Tomcat.
Like they do.
Like they do. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon.
So in terms of kits coming out, when one manufacturer lets slip that they're bringing out a certain kit, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for the industry when you get a couple of other manufacturers jumping on the same bandwagon and knocking these kits out.
The old bus scenario, isn't it? Then one turns up, then another one turns up.
I think the best thing to do is like what Airfix do, is sometimes they'll just drop it, and they'll literally drop it as a bombshell, and it gives nobody else a chance to catch up.
Or is it, like when we were interviewing Luke from Revel, and he's saying these projects are 2 or 3 years in the pipeline. Is it that these companies are looking at the same market trends at the same time, thinking actually...
Coming up with the same model?
Yeah, because the odds of being able to get something together that quickly when it's announced...
Pretty slim.
Yeah, you say that though, but like Trumpeter, for some bizarre reason, do the weird and obscure that nobody else will touch. Like the Barracuda, the Fulmar.
Especially British stuff, yeah.
British stuff, the Albacore. They've done, even though the tail is wrong on that. We will go into that. But like certain subjects are missing. Like I know Revell did the 48 GR4 because I'm looking at it, but it's not a great kit. It's a good kit, but it's not great. And I think that's another thing that seems to be missing is a new, because that tooling now is over 10 years old, and the tooling's not survived great. That was proven with the F3. They did one run of that and then did another run, and the tooling on that was just not good.
Worn out.
Yeah, worn out very quickly. And it's the same with the GR4. There's a lot of flash on it. I've got the Furwell GR4 in the box up there. And when you look at it, there's tons of flash. So obviously the tooling isn't getting a tight fit while the plastic's being injected. But it all depends on how that tooling was made and where it was made.
Is that a Revell kit?
Yeah, it's a Revell kit. Because the way Revell designed that is you build it from the ground up. So you get the bottom, obviously the fuselage, and then you assemble the cockpit, you do the air intakes, you do the engines, and you build it out, and then you then fit the sides to it, the side of the fuselage, and then you put the wings on, and then you put the top of the fuselage onto that. And I just think they made it slightly over-engineered. To be honest, a lot of people slate Hobby Boss for their Tornadoes, but the only thing they did, which we can never understand, is that the air brakes, you can't have them closed. They're fully open, so they'll actually, you can't see the engine detail because the air brakes are out, but you can't have them so that they're receded in like every other Tornado kit.
Does nobody do an aftermarket for that?
No, they've never done for it. Like I said, they did the ECR, the IDS, they did the F3, because the F3 is probably one of the most accurate.
So apart from that fault with the air brake, the rest of the kit's good? They're all pretty good?
The rest of the kit's fine, yeah. The rest of the kit's fine.
You saying about the air brakes, I was reminded of something in a conversation yesterday. Airfix 172nd TSR2. Everyone does a fantastic build of it. Everyone's got the air brake shut. The prototype could not shut its air brakes. If you look at every single photograph of TSR2 in flight, there was a fault on the system, which meant that the air brake could not close. So if everyone's got the air brake fully closed, like the ones at Duxford and at the RAF Museum at Cosford, they've got the air brakes closed because they had the modification, but the one that was flying never had it. So if you look at a photograph of it in flight, the air brakes are always just ajar because they could not get them fully closed.
That is interesting, that, because when you look at the video footage of the TSR2 taking off with an engine failure, so it was only burning on one engine.
Yep.
The air brakes seem to be shut on that because it out-accelerates the Lightning, which to me is an impressive thing to do because the Lightning was an ejector seat with two rockets strapped to it.
Yeah.
So if it out-accelerates an English Electric Lightning on one engine,
yeah,
just shows you how of a formidable aircraft that would have been if it had actually entered.
But yes, it looks like Mike's actually looking on the internet to look at photographs of the TFR2 air brakes now.
XR219 has got the issue with the air brake because it is slightly out.
It was the only one that flew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 219. It was the only one that flew. The second aircraft was close, was literally within a day or so. And also, it was always flown in its primer, which was a matte white. Only time it ever got a gloss finish was it was allowed to fly from Boscombe down back to Wharton, and they actually painted it in gloss just for its final photographs before they scrapped it. So she never flew in the gloss white. It was always in the primer of a matte white.
Do you know what, though, with the TSR2? I reckon that, if it had new avionics and everything else, would probably still stand part of this day.
A close friend of the family used to be Roland Beaumont, test pilot. He said the aircraft was exceptional. You could do things with that aircraft at low level and stuff they did in trials, which wasn't widely known about, that Tornado wouldn't even be able to catch it, you know, if it was still going today.
To be honest, I don't think anything would have caught it.
No. Anyway, okay, with that, we'll move on to the next section of the pod.
Please visit modelpodcast.com because finding great modelling shows shouldn't be harder than masking a canopy. One website with all the best pods.
It's that time again to hide your credit cards. It's the Stash Inflation Report. And as per normal, we'll start with the aircraft. Edward are releasing a limited edition 148th MiG-21 F-13. This limited edition series kit contains one set of plastic frames, photo etched parts, a T-face mask for painting the canopy, both inner and outer surfaces, an O-mask undercarriage mask for covering the landing gear bays when painting the model, a magnet, and a decal sheet for 8 colour schemes of the Czechoslovak Air Force. The boxing also includes a book by Martin Janowski about the production and service of MiG-21 F-13s in Czechoslovak Air Force service. Edward will only be producing as many kits which are pre-ordered through the Edward web store and combined with retailer pre-sales. So if you want one of these, you will need to pre-order, as it won't be a standard release that will populate model shop shelves. Luftwaffe are releasing a 132nd scale Ansaldo Balilla, the iconic Italian World War I fighter. Even the packaging hints at the level of detail and passion poured into this kit. Expect several interesting colour schemes, plus a premium edition with fabric and wood texture decals. The standard Italian version will feature wing camouflage decals. Fine Mods are releasing a pair of Zeros. FR-01 is a 1/72nd scale Imperial Japanese Navy Type 52 carrier fighter, Mitsubishi early model, with 3 decal options and is due in October 2025, whilst boxing FR-02 is a Mitsubishi mid-production version with 4 decal options. Both of these are scaled down from the excellent 48 scale kits. Temp models are releasing an ultra-detailed Sukhoi Su-34 model in 1/72nd scale. The boxing includes the airframe, really handy if you're building a model of this aircraft, along with a detailed cockpit, bays, doors, struts, wheels, nozzles, sensors, and pylons. I can't help but think the manufacturer may have recruited a second-hand car salesperson to write the contents of this boxing. From IBG comes the start of the 1/72nd scale Supermarine Spitfire series, with the Mark 1 and Mark 2. The initial black box edition is a limited edition that includes plastic and PE parts for 2 full models, and contains 10 unique, thoroughly researched colour schemes. The boxing also includes 2 sets of paint masks, 3D printed cockpit structure inserts complete with pilot seats and seatbelts, 3D printed wheels, printed exhausts, printed mirrors for both interior and exterior, and 3D printed carburetor air intakes. The Cotton Club boxing includes the photo reconnaissance types PR, A, B, and E, and the bonus inclusion in this box will be 3D printed wheels. Aztec models are releasing a Scion Machete, later rebranded as Aramaki, and Leonardo S211 in 1/48. This is a representation of the turbofan-powered light trainer aircraft, and was operated mainly by the Philippine, Haitian, and Republic of Singapore Air Forces. This advanced printed model comes complete with decals to build one of each of the military operators. Next up is Armory, with a 1/72nd scale MiG-3 late version titled Moscow Air Defense, Winter 1942. The kit includes paint masks, photo etch parts, 3D printed rockets and launchers, and decals for 10 types of Soviet Air Force winter camouflage. And now onto the AFV releases. Miniart are releasing a Rope and Schlepper Oost RSO-01 late production, a late war RSO tracked tractor and winter workhorse, built to drag guns, ammo and rations through deep snow and mud. This highly detailed plastic kit includes all hatches which can be assembled in either the open or closed position, metal surfaces, and world lines accurately represented. The decal sheet contains options for 4 schemes. AFV are releasing a 1/35th scale US Army M51A2 5-ton 6x6 dump gun truck. This vehicle is a derivative of the M39 series, introduced in the 1950s as a heavy-duty off-road hauler. During the Vietnam War, American Army combat engineers converted the M51A2 dump trucks into gun trucks, a heavily armoured vehicle equipped with multiple machine guns, ammo stowage, and protective cab structures which are represented within this kit. AFV Club are also releasing a US Army M1296 Stryker Dragoon Infantry Carrier Vehicle, ESA upgrade. This is a modernised version of the US Army Stryker 8x8 Infantry Fighting Vehicle, upgraded for an enhanced combat capability with Kongsberg MCT 30mm turret mounting the XM813 Bushmaster 2 autocannon. The kit includes an upgraded M44 Bushmaster 2 turret, an improved and enhanced situational awareness ESA system. The kit also includes new toored parts, including a stowage basket, spare tyre rack, fuel canisters, and water tub. Armory are releasing 2 completely new mould 1/72nd scale KRAZ 255B and 257B 12-ton cargo trucks. The kit will also include 3D printed parts. These vehicles were large off-road trucks produced in the Ukraine from 1967 to 1994. They're still widely used today both by the military and by civilian operators. The kit includes a detailed engine and drivetrain, and the cabin doors and cargo bed tailgate can be assembled in either the open or closed positions. The decal sheet includes 9 options, including Soviet, Polish, East German, Finnish, Hungarian, and Ukrainian army markings, as well as a United Nations scheme. The separate boxing also includes decals for 1 Soviet Army version and 9 civilian operators from Ukraine, Cambodia, Uzbekistan, Germany, Poland, and Moldova. And now on to Nevs with the nautical news.
So we'll just dig straight in. Seed Hobby have announced a 1/350th scale US submarine chaser from World War II. This will be a complete with 3D printed kit, with markings for 4 boats: the PC-461, PC-464, PC2472 and the PC476. Sverna are releasing a 1:700 scale People's Liberation Army Navy Dongjiao 2 class spy ship. This will be available as both the standard kit and a deluxe version with 3 threads of PE parts as well as a 3D printed trinkets. Aoshima are re-releasing their 1:700 scale Imperial Japanese Navy Isokaze. It's one of their destroyers, this time with new side-moulded parts for the main turrets, anti-aircraft mounts, searchlights and cutters. Nautic Models have announced a 1:350th scale HMS Argonaut. This is the Leander class frigate in its Falklands War configuration. It looks like this will be a 3D printed kit with a possibility of a 1:200th scale release somewhere down the line. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Verifier are making a splash once again by announcing the 1:350th scale Japanese Super Yamato class battleship Key. This is a theoretical design for a successor to the Yamato, armed with 6 20-inch, yes, you heard that right, 20-inch main guns.
It's time for the IPMS UK Dispatches. All the latest news and updates for the Society with Mark Sanderson, Publicity Officer, IPMS.
Well, we're joined today by the press officer from IPMS UK. Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Paul. How you doing?
Not bad, and yourself?
Yeah, good. Slightly melting under the heat we've got in the UK, but not bad, not bad.
Yes, for those not in the know, the UK is actually having a bit of a meltdown at the moment. We're hitting temperatures in the region of the low 30 degrees centigrade. Anything over 25 and the putty starts melting in the windows over here. Obviously, this is the first episode we've had with any input from IPMS as the official podcast, so Mark, I think the best thing you can do to start off with is just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what your normal modelling genre is.
Sure. So I'm the new publicity officer. Well, not kind of really that new. I've been in the role now for this to be my second year. I'm co-opted in, and my genre of modelling is I model everything. With, as I think everybody has done, I started off as a child with my dad with Spitfires and Lancasters and stuff like that. But it's more a case of, I would say, I'm much more heavily entrenched in science fiction and the Star Wars, mecha, things like that, manga sort of thing. So I'm not necessarily, I'm a bit of an outlier at my local IPMS club, which I'm a member of Farnborough. I am mainly because they're mainly entrenched in aviation, and I don't really do that as much. So aviation is more spaceships. Huge fan of things like Bandai kit and also the Machine and Krieger kind of series as well, which is a bit more closer towards armor modeling. So I like pretty much anything, but I appreciate a really good model. And I think the main thing I love about scale modeling is actually the storytelling aspect of it. So I never will put a tank on a plank. I will always put something in some sort of setting and try to work in some sort of kind of story or little nuggets in there that people can look at it and kind of realize that, oh yes, it's a model, but there's also more things to it.
So an Easter egg for someone to actually look further into the diorama or the setting you've actually got, rather than it just being a lump of plastic on a base.
Yes. I think it comes mainly because my dad's actually a railway modeller, and obviously the whole scenery sort of side of things is a big deal. And I was kind of influenced by that as a child and grew up with it. And he still has a railway model, actually a huge layout in his loft, which has various scenery on, and we always chat about that. So it's kind of levitated from that, really.
Gotcha. Okay, well, you're obviously here to talk about what's new in IPMS, and the idea of this section is not only to keep members informed of what's going on, but obviously to fill in the gaps in between the magazine, which in the UK is due to hit through the post probably as we're actually recording this episode. So what have you got to actually enlighten us with this time then?
So no society news such for this episode, but I have got a couple of shows that I kind of like to highlight. So I'll kick it off with one that's happening on the Saturday, the 19th of July in the UK, obviously. It's East Kent Scale Modelers Show, run by the East Kent Modelers IPMS branch, and it's located at the RAF Manston History Museum. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Yes. In Ramsgate. It's an event they hold twice a year. and it basically is open from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Has a cafe on site, various traders as well as club stands that will be there. The postcode for anyone's planning to go in, sat nav. And I don't want anyone kind of like writing in and saying I got it wrong, but I'm just reading this off the internet, with CT125DF.
So Charlie Tango 12 5 Delta Foxtrot.
I don't have any information on how much the entry price is, but I assume it isn't astronomical and it's going to break the bank.
Fantastic. Okay. And what's the next event?
So the next one, we've got a bit of a clash the following weekend, actually, on the Sunday, the 27th of July. If you're two parts of the country, unfortunately, nothing north, more southern, actually. So we've got the Essex Modelers Show 2025, which is being held at the Hannakins Farm Community Centre in Billericay. Sat nav for that one is, I'm gonna try and do it in your style, Paul. Charlie Mike 12, 0 Sierra Yankee.
Perfect.
Hey, there you go. Give me a job. Sign me up now. And I don't know much about this show. It's open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I think it would probably be great for people in that area. If you are planning something the other side of the south, we have the IPMS BDAC Model Show 2025, and this is held at the Boscombe Down Aviation Collection in Old Sarum. I'm going to be going along to this one, so and I will be doing some filming. So if anybody they're going to be having a model on display and they're really proud of it, or they've got a story to tell, or they just want to chat about their model and what challenges or fun they had doing it, then watch out for me kind of doing the rounds, and I'll be wearing probably the yellow t-shirt. And I'm more than happy to have an interview, conduct an interview with them and talk about their model. And then that will be appearing on the IPMS UK's YouTube channel once I've finished editing it all. So yes, if you see someone in a yellow top wandering around with a 10-year-old girl in tow, who's my camera crew, then that's me and my daughter as well. So that one's actually the entrance cost. I've got some more details on this one. The entrance cost is £11.50 for adults, £10.50p for concessions, and children under 16 is £6.50, with under fives going in free. Some people might think it's a bit expensive for a show, but it does grant you entry to the actual museum itself, and there's a lot of kind of delights in there, and that people can wander around when they're not looking at the plastic scale subjects. There's free car parking and on-site refreshments, and the all-important sat nav for that is a Salisbury one. So here we go again. Sierra Papa 4 6 Delta Zebra. Is that right?
Zulu, but you were close.
Oh God!
Nearly there. And just so you don't get lynched by the locals, it's Old Sarum.
All right, okay, there we go then. So I'm probably running foul of it anyway. But there'll be model displays there. There'll be various traders. There's a competition as well. So there's that's going to be a really good one. I'm looking forward to that.
There's a lot of good exhibits in that museum as well, as you were just saying. They've got the prototype BAE Hawk. They've got Jaguar. They've got a couple of Jaguars now. They've got a lot of aircraft that actually served operationally at Boscombe Down in the Empire Test Pilot School and the Aircraft and Armament Experimental Establishment, A&AE, as it used to be before Kinetic took on the role. So a lot of aircraft in the wonderful Raspberry Ripple scheme to have a look at.
Yeah, it's very much is crammed in. I'm quite interested. I've never been to the show there. I've been to the actual museum, and I think I had to watch out for a few pointy parts on some of the aircraft. Hopefully they'll be putting some nice yellow bits on so you don't take your eye out, but it's definitely chocked in there. So anyone that's really interested, and also great for somebody who wants to get up close and personal with something, they can't necessarily find those pictures on the internet. So a very good opportunity for a lot of people. So that's all the shows. And all I would say is that if anybody is listening to this and they've got any future shows they want to have featured, then please, you can get in touch with the IPMS UK via the website, which is ipmsuk.org. And we'll be more than happy to, there's a form there you can fill in to submit your event, and then it gets put onto the website. And anybody who's looking for an event, who's got a board weekend or wants something, they can go to ipmsuk.org/events. And that's where all the latest information is held, along with opening times, various postcodes, etc., etc.
Okay, well, in addition to that, if you go to our website, which is beyondtheboxart.com, there is a page for events, and each national IPMS organisation that we can find an active link to. And there's show pages listed on all of those. So international events are listed on our site, so you can actually find out what's going on around the rest of the world. And obviously the other biggie that's coming up very shortly is the IPMS USA National Convention, which is being held at their Hampton Roads Convention Centre, which is at 1610 Coliseum Drive, Hampton, Virginia, 23666 in the United States. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of content going out of that show over the next couple of weeks in the build-up and obviously post-show as well, so keep an eye on that. Mark, thank you very much for popping on, and we'll be speaking to you again in the very near future, and let's get those events rolling in for what's both in the UK and for overseas as well.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm John Colasante from Matters of Scale, and you're listening to Beyond the Box Art.
Rivet Counters Minute, brought to you by Matters of Scale. Today on Rivet Counters Minute, we're spotlighting the PB-4Y2 Privateer, the Navy's stretched-out single-tail cousin of the B-24, with 12 50-cal machine guns. From the chin turret to that fierce tail stinger, this bird was bristling with firepower. But don't be fooled, its extended fuselage made it a real diva during crosswind landings. Modeling one, if you're tackling the Costa PB-4Y2 conversion, mattersofscale.com has you covered with a precision-engineered engine and cowl set made just for it. No shortcuts, no filler, just true rivet counting accuracy. Visit mattersofscale.com, where precision meets obsession.
Every small business has a big story. Precision by Passion tells it, spotlighting the artisans who turn knowledge and love of detail into something lasting.
Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Kevin Footer, the driving force behind KLP Publishing, an independent Australian digital publisher that's become a go-to name for scale modelers wanting in-depth, step-by-step build guides and super detailed reference material. Kevin's background is a fascinating blend of lifelong scale modelling passion and professional experience in publishing, IT and music. That unique mix helped him spot a gap in the market: high-quality, downloadable modelling books that are living documents, updated over time, packaged with bonus content, and accessible worldwide with a click. From collaborating with some of the world's best modelers to creating rich, interactive ebooks that elevate not just the final result, but the journey of building. Kevin's work with KLP is redefining what a modelling reference can be in the digital age. So whether you're a rivet counter or a seatbelt slapper, if you've ever wanted to see a build broken down in forensic detail or wondered how to approach that daunting large-scale kit, Kevin's your man. Let's open the cover and get into it. Kevin, welcome to Precision by Passion.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Let's kick off with what inspired you to start KLP Publishing, and why did you choose digital books specifically for the modelling community rather than the more conventional paper format?
Well, these are actually long answers to short questions, so let's see how we go. The inspiration for starting any kind of a hobby business at all really came about because I was super frustrated with my day job. I really wanted to do something vocationally that involved something I was passionate about. I don't think there's anybody who's ever been in the hobby for more than 10 minutes that didn't become passionate about it. So I scratched around for a little while, and around about 2016, the idea of doing some publishing started to sort of gel as a real idea. Some of your listeners will know that one of my other hats is as an administrator on the Large Scale Planes website. As part of my role there, did a lot of reviews, I think over 450 reviews that I've done for Large Scale Planes. And a lot of those reviews were modelling books, modelling videos, all kinds of reference material. And well, most of them were pretty good. There was always something about them that I wasn't happy about. And being a bit of a grammar Nazi, not sure if I can say that on radio, but definitely I'm a grammar Nazi. I used to get a real bee in my bonnet about the simplest little things, typos, anything like that. Things that most readers don't care about at all. And I thought, you know what? If this was a digital publication, they could fix this and they could release another version and we'd all go on and I'd be less stressed as an individual. I'd be happy with my life. And that was really the moment that planted the seed for me, where I thought, you know what? Why don't I just put my money where my mouth is there, take my foot out for a change, see where we can go with that. And at that point, I really didn't have a concrete idea other than that was a good one and should I really pursue it. I think it was around about the end of 2016 that it really kind of just, after I let it percolate for a few months, that this idea that maybe releasing digital publications might be worth pursuing. And at that point I had a day job. As I said, I was pretty unhappy with it, but nobody makes any money in this hobby. That's the general consensus, is that let's just see what happens. At the start of 2017, this is going to sound like a sad story, but it's not. But at the start of 2017, my wife actually got diagnosed with breast cancer. As part of her treatment, I decided I was going to take that year off work. My employer at the time was extremely generous about that. They didn't make that difficult at all. In fact, originally I was going to take 3 months off, and then it turned into 6 months, then it turned into the whole year. And they were really fabulously supportive. So I have to, even in retrospect now, thank them greatly for that. But it was really that year off where I was sort of taking care of family business and didn't have a day job to worry about, that I was able to really kind of put pen to paper, develop a business plan, develop a business model, and I think I kicked off the business formally by registering it in March of 2017, and then the first title came out in, I want to say June. But, to answer your question more directly, the inspiration really was about, well, if I can sit here and read a lot of titles and complain about, things that need updating, why don't I develop a product where that's not a problem, where that's not an issue? And originally, the whole idea that I publish updates to these publications, originally it wasn't supposed to be a big thing. It wasn't supposed to be a major part of what I was doing. But over the sort of 8 years that I've been doing this, it's turned into quite a cornerstone thing, where it's almost something that defines the business now, in a way. So if we take last year, for example, I released 9 new titles, which is a bit of a record. But at the same time, I might double that in terms of the number of updates that I do. So I might take 9 updates for other books as well, sometimes more. Whereas originally I was smug enough to think, well, I can fix typos, but hey, I don't make any. So it's never going to happen. Well, that's just stupid. In publishing, we call that Murphy's Law, the idea that typos are inevitable. I really thought, look, the possibility of producing updates to books is there, but it isn't really going to happen very much. Well, that's completely turned on its head, and I probably spend more time updating books than I do making new ones, to be honest. Brownie, you'd know yourself. You've seen some of them. Sometimes they are just simply fixing a typo, and I release an update. And sometimes an update for a book will come with 20 new pages of a new walk around that's been sent to me or something. So the content isn't just, oh, hang on, there's an apostrophe out of place. It can be a complete revision.
You've obviously built a reputation for ultra-detailed titles. When was the light bulb moment that you realised there was a real demand for this format?
Probably about 2 years in, because honestly, it didn't take off greatly at first. The first title that I released ever, which was a title called Building Bricks Sabre, was a title by Eric Galliers, who actually built a CAC Sabre based on an aircraft that an Australian pilot flew, and he met the pilot and gave him the model and did all that stuff. And so the book also includes a lot of anecdotes from the pilot himself about his time flying the plane and things like that. So it's really good. But in hindsight, I'm not embarrassed to say that it took over a year to sell 100 copies of that book. It didn't take off at all. It's really only since the catalogue has built up to, nearly 40 titles now that, word of mouth, the whole sort of viral thing, people such as yourself talking about it online, just the word getting around that, yeah, they might be ebooks and they might not be, I've had people say, but they're not real books. Well, I think they are.
Agreed. Well, the content and number of pages you've got versus the amount you actually pay the title, which in my opinion is too low, but I'll probably get lynched for saying that.
The value for money proposition is undeniable. And, I've been told many times that they're too cheap. They're priced that way very deliberately because after my first experience with the first book, and it was well received. I mean, I get very little negative feedback about books themselves, but I do get a lot of feedback saying, well, if only they were printed books, if only you did, physical copies, if only they were real books, in air quotes. Referring back to your early question about, what motivated me to do this, a lot of it was about the fact that I'd taken on board a lot of what I'd seen with other publications and modelling guides and books and things, and I did take on board a lot of the things that I liked and a lot of the things I didn't like about those publications. And I thought, well, in order to provide value for money, I thought there are things I want to do that just can't be done in print. It comes down to that. Being able to have extra large photos so that you don't have to squint at them. You don't have to wonder what they'd be like if you'd actually see them. As an aging bloke, having large print was important. Not having to squint, not having to deal with tiny print that you can't even pinch and zoom on a real book. So you're out with a magnifying glass or whatever else. I thought at that point, well, if we can do all this stuff, then page count no longer matters. Because in the printed world, every page costs money. In the digital world, pages are basically free, in a sense. And so I thought, well, that gives me the opportunity to make the text as large as I like, or as large as I'm comfortable with, make the photos as large as possible. And as you guys would know from having seen some of the publications, a lot of the books only have a single very large photo with a caption, and that's it, because that's all that's required for that page. I don't need to cram 4 other photos in and tiny little text.
And you have the advantage, what you said just now, in that you can pinch and zoom. So for those that aren't obviously aware of the publications yet and haven't actually bought any, and I strongly recommend after this, you actually go and have a look at the products, is when you've actually got your picture on screen, you're not just limited to the view you've got, you can actually zoom in. So if you're looking at a part of a conversion or a build, you need more detail in, you can actually go in and look at that compared to if you're actually getting a hard copy book and you get a magnifying glass out, and a lot of the detail you can't see because literally you start getting pixelation on the photographs with the magnifying glass, so you lose some of that detail.
Absolutely. And, one of my design philosophies really is that while you can pinch and zoom, and it's certainly readily available in the format, I wanted to produce pages where you didn't need to.
Yep.
In effect, you could get what you wanted just by looking at it. If you wanted to pinch and zoom to really zoom into, infinite detail, you can do that because the format allows for it. But, the last thing I wanted was for someone to open the book and go, well, that photo would be great if I could actually see it.
Yeah.
Along with the other 12 that are crammed onto the page or whatever. That became a huge motivator. And that was really, you talk about a light bulb moment, and it really didn't come from without. It didn't really come from the market. It was really that realization that in order to achieve what I wanted to achieve with these publications, they had to be digital. There was really no compromise for that. And I still get asked every week, when are you going to do printed ones? I say, well, probably never, because I feel that, everybody loves printed books, physical books. I do too. And there's no denying that you can't beat the tactile nature of them. Same with, vinyl records versus CDs or digital, the tactile element is unbeatable. But at the end of the day, that's just packaging. Maybe you're aware that, last year I released John McElmurray's book on the JU88 G6. That's over 1,000 pages, that book.
Wow.
I'm selling it for $40 Australian. So if in US dollars, it's probably $1.50. I don't know. Not much. And that's had 2 updates since, and probably another one before the end of the year. And if I were to sell that as a printed book, now God knows how much it would cost me to have a 1,000-page book printed, and then to ship it anywhere in the world would probably double the cost. For example, if I was to sell that to someone in the US, they're probably going to pay $300 for it, of which 280 of those US dollars is for packaging and postage. Packaging being the physical book.
I get you.
So that to me is the good value for money. That's not a way for me to sustain a business. And, for all those people who say to me, please do printed books, I'd be at the other end of the line after having done it saying, please pay for it.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I've just done a quick calculation, and you're looking at, for 40 Australian dollars, that's roughly equates to $26.30 US.
£19.15 British pounds.
Is it really? Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So when we get off from speaking, I will put the prices up. Thanks, boys. Anyway. No, but the thing is, I alluded to this earlier, but I probably didn't really finish the thought. But the idea of the pricing is that because in our particular demographic, there is a lot of resistance to the digital format. And I hear that all the time. I prefer real books. I prefer printed books. But that's not going to solve how I want to present the information in my books. So they're always going to be digital.
For modelling magazines for really the last 5 years now, wherever they are available, I will go for the digital rather than the hard copy because the amount of space that the magazines actually take, and every magazine is interesting, but there's only certain articles that you're actually interested in, and the amount of shelf space it takes to actually store something like that reference material wise compared to the digital version
is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big factor for me too, is at the time when I launched the business, I had, and still do, have bookshelves groaning with books that I can't cram another thing onto.
Yeah.
And if I receive another book for review now, which I do semi-regularly, I think, well, that's fine, but where am I going to put it?
Quite.
I don't have a free slot on a shelf anywhere. I thought, well, again, digital is the obvious solution. And it's not the prime motivator. As I said before, the prime motivator is the best way that I want to deliver the actual content. But the physical considerations are certainly there. And if they're for me, and I don't even have a very large book collection, there'll be people out there with far larger libraries than I have, and it must be a much bigger issue for them. So it probably explains the divorce rate in modelling, but there you go.
I've got books on particular aircraft, and there's been 2 or 3 revisions of that book. And obviously, being digital, you've obviously paid for the book and it gets revised. I would rather prefer that than having to spend another, potentially, especially in the UK, another 60 quid to have another 2 volumes of it, because they've added another 10, 15 pages per book. So you end up with 30 pages, but then you've got 3 books of the exact same. But what do you do with your old books? That's the thing. You end up collecting books, and that's what takes up most of the space. Is where with the digital format, when you've had notification to say it's been updated, everything's there on digital format. For me, going forward, I would rather have more digital format books than have printed, because like you say, they just take up so vast space, and you end up with like running books like they're all exactly the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. And the thing that I'm not sure if we touched on yet or not is we've talked a lot about how the books get updated, but for everyone who purchases one of my books, those updates are lifetime free. So I don't charge for them. If you bought the Phantom book and I've updated it 20 times, you're entitled to download those updates for free for the life of, as long as I'm updating them. Whereas if that was a printed book, the publisher has no option but to charge you money for that, because it's cost them money. And that's just part of the value add. And same with the pricing thing. I've regained my train of thought on that idea. But the idea is that, a train leaves the station, the train comes into the station. We don't know what's going on anymore. But part of the idea with the pricing was that I needed to make it attractive for doubters and for punters and for people who said, well, I prefer real books, but hey, this thing is so cheap. It's worth the risk. And that's the thing. And I've said this before in public, but I'm not trying to convince anybody that digital books are better, or that they should all go and burn their libraries and replace them all with digital or anything like that. All I'm really saying is that for what I'm trying to do with my content, digital is really the only format that works for me, that gives me everything I want to do, and allows me to give the customer everything that I want them to have. In order to try to kind of bait the hook a little bit, I need to keep the prices low enough, because I can't really make the business sustainable just by selling to people who are rabid fans of the digital format, because there's not enough of them in our hobby. And obviously, I'd like for that to grow, and I'm hoping that my efforts do grow that audience and that customer base. But I need enough people to say, look, I'm not that keen on the format, but it looks all right, and I've heard it's good, and the price is unbeatable. Over time, with inflation and everything else, probably we'll have to raise some prices. That's inevitable. But I've kept the prices pretty much the same since I started the business in 2017, the pricing model. So far it's working, and I've heard people say, ebooks don't sell and all that sort of stuff. But I think the reason that they do for me is because I'm committed to the format. It's not an afterthought. It's not just a digital dump of a print version or anything like that. It's a bespoke, custom, deliberately designed. Like, for example, the JU88 book that I mentioned earlier, in my view, it's unprintable. For a start, it comes in 4 files. One of the files is in A3 landscape format. So as a printed book, it would have to be a separate volume anyway. 80-odd pages, I think, of A3 landscape, scale plans and drawings. Separate volume to the main book itself. So the entire package is closer to 1,200 pages, actually.
Well, that brings me on to what I was going to say is, like, can you walk us through the process of developing a KLP book? From the initial idea to the final digital download?
Most of the ideas for the content are actually opportunistic, I'll say, because as I said earlier, my role as administrator of large scale planes gives me access to a lot of the builds there. And one of the nice things is I can watch a build develop, watch the model come to fruition. I can then approach the builder afterwards and say, look, I think this is an amazing project. It would make a great book. How do you feel about that? 99 times out of 100, they're really keen on that idea because for them, it's a chance to get published and have their name put out a little bit more widely. Almost all of my authors are hobbyists. They're not professional modelers. So if they get any money from the endeavour, then, that's all bonus. Might pay for the next few kits or whatever. And then I get the ability to say, well, I can see the build already done and whether or not the photos are good enough, whether or not the build is good enough, whether or not there's enough written material to make a book. It's kind of all there in front of me. And then all I do, well, when I say all I do, it's quite a lot of work, but then I do all the editorial stuff of processing the photos and editing the text and doing all the layout. So a lot of stuff comes from that particular avenue. And in my view, that actually provides a superior product because sometimes when people send me stuff unsolicited or perhaps it is solicited but I haven't seen it before, the quality isn't always what I was expecting when I receive it. And sometimes you think, oh, you know what, those photos aren't that good and I can't really work with them or there's not enough text and explanation. Because as you guys would know, having seen them, they're not magazine articles. They're in-depth. They're highly detailed. There's a lot of photos, a lot of text, and that was one of my other motivations for doing these is I wanted to present to people something that went above and beyond what you do get in a magazine article. And that's no disrespect for magazines. They do a great job and I read them myself, but I wanted something that was way beyond that in scope. And then sometimes what I receive from potential authors is a magazine article. And that kind of isn't really what I'm trying to do. Something that if I turned it into something would be a 26-page book instead of 126 pages. And so I'm not kind of really interested in being in that magazine article space. So having the ability to see these builds unfold online and make judgments about them and assessments about them, and then take them and turn them into something completely different really works well for what I'm trying to do. You'd think that, well, people would say, well, it's already online. Why would I pay money for it? But in actual fact, I've had customers thank me for actually turning, an 80-page rambling build thread with lots of white noise into a coherent, cohesive, well-edited document that they're happy to pay, $15 for or whatever. Yeah. So I find that, that works really well. In other cases, for example, with Jeff Coughlin's Phantom books that you guys are such fans of, he came to me with that idea. I think he'd actually approached several traditional publishers and they all turned him down and, just said it was sort of too much. And for me, there is no too much. There's no such thing as too much.
No, because obviously, yeah.
You've hit on a very interesting point that the number of pages and the content, a lot of books will actually cut out a lot of the interesting information for the fact they just don't think the page count is worth commercially what is actually being produced. But from the modeler's side of view and from reference, it's absolutely key.
Well, exactly, because, unfortunately, for every page that you add to a physical book, you've really got to add 2 pages because you need facing pages. So every page means 2 pages. And, it all ends up costing quite a bit of money. And they're more to produce, ship, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said earlier, a page for me is virtually free. And I don't even need to worry about having even numbers of pages like you do in a physical. I can have 831, which doesn't work at all for a printed book.
Some people's OCD would go off the scale with that.
Oh, God, yes, absolutely.
Well, sorry about that, but this is why in physical books sometimes you'll come to a blank page and it'll have a little note saying this page is left intentionally blank. It's only to balance out the page count so that there's an even number.
Yeah.
All of that stuff goes out the window for me. I don't, I literally make no concession to printability with my books. They are printable, and I've had customers actually take them to a professional print shop and have them printed out and hardbound, and they look actually quite amazing. But it's very expensive to do. To me, that defeats the purpose, but, good on them, and I certainly have no qualms or quibbles about that. But I make no concession for printability. An actual print layout person would probably die of shock if they saw what my layouts were like, because there's no allowance made for printable margins, facing pages, none of that stuff. And in actual fact, my design philosophy for the books, because I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not a professional in that sense. So I try to work with what I know and what I know I can do, which is make things functionally attractive, I guess, is how I would put it. And so I treat every page as its own entity. You'll notice that as much as possible in my books, I try not to have text span onto the next page. I want the text and the image to represent what the content of that page is, page is designed around those two elements, and the next page is a completely different thing. And one of the things that, when I used to read magazines or newspapers of any description that used to drive me bonkers was the little line at the bottom that said continued on page blah, blah, blah. Oh, like that is verboten in my book. I've had to do it on a couple of books, but generally, I'll avoid that like the plague because I hate it. Absolutely hate that.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So, there's a certain sort of functional utility that's deliberately designed into the way the books work effectively. It's interesting to talk about a book working a particular way, but that's how I approach it with a lot of them. But, there's a functionality to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously, you mentioned that you've worked with Jeff. Obviously, you collaborate with other well-known modelers. How would you choose who to work with? And in your opinion, what makes a great modelling author?
I think, it's the same for me as it would be for any publication. Any magazine you care to mention would have a similar set of criteria to me, which is, first and foremost, the model has to be of a certain standard, the modelling itself. And for me, probably less so the finished model than the modelling itself is important to me, because I'm not making coffee table publications that have lots of pretty models in them. I want them to be build guides that help people build their models. And I don't mind if the model at the end has some problems, as long as the process of documenting that has learning and teaching moments for a reader.
Yeah, no.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the model can be a complete failure at the end, as long as there was lots to learn along the way. But it helps also if the model was a success, and that's generally what I will lead into. But the modelling itself has to be of a certain standard. Photos also have to be of a certain standard, because if they're not, there's not a lot you can do. You all have heard the old saying that you can't polish a turd, right? It's mostly true. That there are certain things you can do, but above having AI kind of rewrite your file so it's not even the same thing anymore, if the photo isn't very good, then I can't work with it, really. And there are different levels of not very good. And the obvious ones are, blurry photos, stuff that's out of focus, stuff that doesn't clearly show, what you're trying to show, but also stuff that's on really cluttered workbenches or with really cluttered backgrounds. They don't help at all, because they're basically not very attractive photos, and they also are hard to see what's going on with the mod. So not always. I mean, some of my authors do take workbench photos, and they're mostly fine as long as they're not littered with other stuff that isn't the model. And ironically, the text is probably the least important part, because that's where I can polish a turd, and that's the job of an editor. I did study editing and publishing at university, so I do have some kind of training in that area. So it's not kind of, I'm not feeling way in the dark with that. I do know what I'm doing, more or less. So if you give me really good quality photos of really good quality modelling and some text that needs a lot of work, I'm probably still pretty happy. Where it can be a problem is if people haven't written very much at all and there's really just not enough to work with. But again, if the photos are good, the modelling is good, I can go back to the author and say, look, can we just work on this a bit? But if the photos are already dodgy and the modelling isn't really great, generally that's just not going to work. I think, as you said, Mike, what makes a good author, I think it's just the ability to not let their egos get in the way of the process. Because they'll have an idea in their mind that their model is pretty good and that they've done a great job. And if I come back to them and say, well, yeah, that's all good, but you haven't described how you did this, and that bit doesn't have enough detail, and the last thing you need from an author is for them to get their backs up about that. So, and honestly, most people don't. And most of my authors are fantastic to work with.
Most. So who are the ones that you can't work with then?
Well, there's a reason I've never published my own stuff. Not really. It's probably no surprise to anybody listening that I like to do things a little bit differently. The whole business is founded on doing things differently. And, I don't tend to jump on trends. I don't tend to sort of say, I've got to get, there's a brand new kit out that's going to be really popular. I really need to get something out about that. It kind of doesn't interest me very much. I just really want good modelling. And if there's a lot of teachable moments in the content, it doesn't matter what the kit is really, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? Tutorial in one of my books about how to do rigging, and there is in a couple of the books. Then it doesn't matter what biplane you're building, you'll get something out of that tutorial. It doesn't matter that you're not building that exact model. Same with, the airbrushing stuff and all of it, really. So for me, it's about just giving the highest quality content and not worrying terribly much about, the specific kit so, it's a long-winded way of saying not really, Mike. Does that make sense?
Are there any kits or modelling subjects that you're dying to publish a book on but haven't yet?
I'm a World War II guy, aircraft guy, and I think if I had my way, I would probably like to make sure that what I publish isn't too biased in that direction. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to feed my own biases too much to the detriment of a larger audience who doesn't care as much. And hence, when Jeff came to me, with this idea about doing a Phantom trilogy, I was rapt because honestly, I don't know or care all that much about Phantoms myself, but I know it's a hugely popular subject. And I knew Jeff would do it justice. And he was pretty convinced that he could not only do it justice, but he could bring some new things to the table about it that, that other publishers, he couldn't get their interest because of the scope of it, really. Even as digital publications, we had to do 3 volumes. There's more stuff coming from Jeff down the pipe too, so, look out for those things.
Can you give us a bit of a taste of what's coming?
No.
Oh.
Well, the reason I don't like to is because no project is done until it's done, until it's in the hat. And I've been bitten before by making prognostications about titles that disappeared up their own rhetoric and never to be seen again. So it's better that I just sort of play my cards close to my chest, and when they're an actual thing, then they become an actual thing, and they're not just, because up until then they're just vaporware, and they may or may not actually come to fruition. And I need to defer also to Jeff, who probably doesn't want me blabbing.
Okay. So, Kevin, how do you see the modelling book market evolving, especially with YouTube, Patreon, and other formats vying for attention?
I think that the specialist print market across the board is under a lot of pressure, and increasingly so these days. And I'm not just talking about modelling stuff. Anybody who releases specialty stuff that isn't aimed at the mass market is going to struggle into the future, as the audience recedes and as costs continue to go up. And I think that's really going to put a lot of pressure on the viability of specialty publication. And, it'll get to a point where at least you're doing children's books, there'll be no money in it for anybody. Now, fiction is a little bit different because fiction is quite cheap to produce. But photo-heavy stuff is not. Big, glossy, hardbound things, they're expensive. And increasingly so. And I think that the first thing that will happen is that the physical products will, let's say, cheaper. And by that I mean, when you pick them up, they will feel cheaper. The paper will be thinner. It'll be less glossy. They'll try to produce the product to a falling price, and it'll effectively become a race to the bottom, so to speak. So I think that page counts will then drop, and then you're getting less for your money. I don't mean to be a doom and gloom merchant about that. I'm certainly not trying to kill the market in front of me so that I can have it all myself. That's what that's about. This is just literally my truthful take on how I see it going. And I think a lot of specialty publications will be under the same pressure. I think modelling magazines will be the first to probably go by the wayside, honestly. At least in physical format. I think those who can make a successful at the digital will keep going, but I think it'll become untenable and unviable to keep producing printed copies and selling them in enough quantity to make any money, or to make a sustainable business. So and that'll be a shame. Like I'm not voting for that at all, but I think that's the reality. But the thing that rails against that in our demographic is what I mentioned, right at the outset, is that as a bunch of aging white men, which most of the hobby is made up of, there is, and I know this personally from my own 80 years of experience, there's a very strong resistance to the digital format for books. And, this is one of the things I've been working hard to break that down. And I have had feedback from some customers who've said, you know what, I wasn't keen on this digital thing, but I bought one of your books and you converted me, which is wonderful to hear. But I don't think that's going to be a common occurrence. I think there's a lot of people, I'm approaching 60 now myself. I won't pressure you guys into giving that away. But, I think there's a lot of people in my age bracket in this hobby who will go to their grave clutching their book, and they won't have it any other way. So that will sustain the modelling book industry for as long as those people are upright. But eventually, and if you look forward 20 years, I think that possibly a thing of the past, but we'll see. It could be that, a new format comes on board that makes what I do completely redundant as well. And I get bypassed, so that's possible, but hopefully not.
It's like the evolution of vinyl to CD to Blu-ray, etc.
And back again.
The actual transition is actually evolving all the time, but obviously we've been stuck with the paper format for many centuries. The evolution and transition to online is a logical one to make. And the way that I potentially see this happening is more interactive content. So in my mind, you will have a sort of a morph between the PDF and YouTube. So you're actually going to get some footage of what you're actually building or step by step, potentially going down that route.
I've actually thought about that particular avenue a lot in recent times. It's technically possible with the PDF format, which is obviously what I use, but it can't be done at the source. You have to actually embed that content into the PDF itself. That's not really practical at this stage. What is easy to do is just to provide a link in the PDF to a YouTube video without having, and perhaps even embed a thumbnail of it or that sort of thing. That's really easy to do. And I just haven't had calls to do that yet. In fact, one of the books I did publish recently was Peter Castle's build recently. It's probably 3 years ago now, but Peter Castle's build, I'm sure you all know who Peter Castle is from Airscale. He scratch built a 1/18th scale Hawker Fury, the biplane. Incredible build. So we published that, and he had a whole bunch of videos prepared of some of his metalwork construction. It wasn't directly related to that build, but it was related to the techniques he was using. And I said to Peter, well, let's publish those videos as part of the book. We can integrate. And in the end, we didn't do it because he felt that he'd already moved on from some of those techniques and they weren't valid anymore. So it didn't happen. But, the potential was there to actually include a whole bunch of interactive content kind of secondhand. But unfortunately, while the PDF format is what it is, I can't really embed that sort of content. And obviously, there's a file size issue as well. Some of my files are already quite large for PDFs. Once you start embedding things like video, they'll get out of hand, unfortunately.
We're looking at storage and everything and the other issues, but in the coming years as things evolve, I can see it being a natural transition, in my opinion.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, interestingly, I went back to uni in my early 30s in 1999 and I got myself a degree in multimedia, which I thought was going to be, the next big thing, and I'd be set for life. This is multimedia. Anyway, 2 years after I graduated, the bottom fell out of the market and was never seen again. And we're talking about interactive CDs and things like that, right? They were really just a blip on the radar at the time. Well, at the time we thought they were going to be the next big thing and here forever. In hindsight, they were just a blip, and anybody who's still hanging on to a copy of Encarta will know what I'm talking about. But in some ways, I wish they were still a thing because they would suit me now down to the ground, to be able to publish books in CD format full of video and all that sort of. The problem is that the authoring tools really aren't there anymore. They were big in the late 90s and through to the mid-2000s. Authoring tools were everywhere and you could really produce some amazing content. They're all withered and died and blown away in the dust. So there's really not the tools anymore to create that kind of content, let alone to kind of read it on your computer. So it's a nice idea. I'd love to, have the ability to do something like that. But then again, we're back to a physical medium. I would have to ship CDs to people. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. We're in a downloadable world these days, and that's, that's the world I'm trying to participate in. So, and to everybody who says, but all my real books, I can imagine these guys sitting at home on the computers printing out the internet, which, to me seems ludicrous, but I'm happy to do it with everything else. So, yeah, like I say, and, I'm not trying to, I don't consider people who won't consider an ebook. I don't consider them part of my audience. I'm not really trying to market to those people because I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm not trying to convince anybody that they're wrong. I'm just trying to find the people who do love this stuff and give them product. And then hopefully on the fringes, things soften a little bit and that fringe widens a little bit, and the playing field becomes a little bit wider and people buy in a little bit more. And that's a gradual iterative process as people's attitudes soften through exposure, basically.
So with your content at the moment, it's obviously primarily aviation driven, but have you looked at potentially going into AFVs or other genres of models?
I was just about to say that.
Look, I have published, probably wouldn't have seen it. There is a book on sci-fi and fantasy models that I published a few years ago. That's got 8 builds in it. And that book is by Jason Garras, who's now one of the associate editors at Fine Scale Modeler. And, that was a punt on my part, on both our parts really, to sort of push away a little bit from just the aircraft and into a different genre. And unfortunately, it didn't work. It didn't work at all. It sold a few copies, but basically, it's probably my poorest selling title so far, sadly, because I think it's a great book. And I think they're all great books. I love all my books. But that one in particular just didn't hit a market at all. I think it was a complete miss with my usual audience, which is aircraft modelers. It was, myself as a publisher, was outside the mind space of people who were into that kind of thing. The sci-fi and fantasy modelers just weren't looking in my direction. And so, it sort of landed between those two things and didn't go anywhere. That tempered my enthusiasm a little bit for going outside my wheelhouse. I haven't ruled it out, but I am very, very comfortable with aircraft content in terms of, the editorial stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like I can look at an aircraft model and understand it, but I can't tell a Tiger tank from a street sign, honestly. And so I don't know what a good armor model looks like compared to a bad one, which would leave me vulnerable to publishing garbage and not realizing it, which, is absolutely what I don't want to do. Now, obviously, the way to get around that is to just work with established names. And I've had half a conversation with the likes of Sam Dwyer. And ironically, if Sam were to write a book for me, it would probably be an aircraft title at this point. That may or may not happen. It's more about the fact that I think if I stick to my wheelhouse, my content will be better than if I stray. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Well, Kevin, thank you for taking us behind the scenes at KLP and giving us a glimpse of the craft, care and community focus that drives every release. Whether you're building a 132nd F-16 or just craving something more in-depth than your average instruction sheet, we highly recommend checking out the full KLP catalogue over at www.klp.com.au. And don't forget, every ebook you buy helps support the authors, the builders, and the innovation in our hobby. Remember, a great model always starts with great reference material. Kevin, thank you for coming on, and please keep in touch in the future.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Models Without Borders is proud to announce the launch of its first ever global online event, Virtual Model Exhibition 2025, or the shorthand version, VMX25. VMX25 invites scale modelers from around the world to showcase their work in a fully virtual format that reflects the hobby's growth and diversity. Entrants may enter models in any of the exhibition's 11 classes. Registration, which will cost $10 will be open from the 1st of August until the 15th, and each participant can enter up to 5 models. Builders can choose whether each model is evaluated, display only, or both. Evaluations will use MWB's skill-based system, which considers the modeler's goals, experience and craftsmanship. The system is designed to support growth, celebrate creativity and recognise achievement across all skill levels, without comparison or competition. VMX25 winners will receive a unique gold, silver or bronze awards or a certificate of merit. VMX25 will take place after registrations are complete, and for updates please visit www.modelers, that's with 2 L's, modelers.org, and subscribe or follow Modelers Without Borders on social media.
It's time for Wongy's Wisdom, guaranteed to improve your models or at least make you feel better about them.
Hiya guys, so it's more Wongy's Wisdom. Right, this time I'm going to tell you about a simple way to do snow effects. So let me start by saying there are a multitude of snow effect products out there, but they do the same job as what I'm going to tell you. However, you'll have all the materials you actually need from episodes 2 and 3 to do this. So I'll run through these right now. So you're going to need the Woodland Scenic Snuff Snowflake, PVA glue, Mod Podge, ready to use filler, ideally that dries white, a flexible scraper, an old plastic mixing cup and some coffee stirrers, an old brush, MDF base for the diorama and any scrap materials for slopes, etc. Okay, let's do it. If you heard my chat about wetting and fixing solutions in episode 3, then you're good to go, you can carry on. If not, I would highly recommend you stop and listen to that one first, or this next bit won't make any sense. Step 1, let's make a snow blanket. I'm assuming if you want to have a slight level change to the base, you can do that first by gluing XPS foam or corkboard using PVA glue. Make sure the whole thing is dry and trimmed off so it's ready for the next stage. Don't forget to coat the whole thing with some PVA to act as a key and let it dry. Using the scraper, apply a layer of filler to the MDF base. A thickness of 3 to 4 millimeters is okay. Don't worry if the surface isn't smooth or regular, as the next bit will actually fix it. Get yourself a cup of water and dip your fingers in. Then rub your fingers out onto the filler to smooth out the lumps, or even get creative and create ripples. You'll need to repeat this again until it's smooth. While you're doing this, you can add extra things like tracks and footprints by just simply using your model vehicle or figures. When you're done, just set it aside and let it dry out. Okay, that's it. Your base is now ready. Or is it? If you want to look even better, can I suggest this next step? Step 2. Using some simple snow effects. So using the wetting solution that I mentioned earlier, mist the area of the diorama base to break the surface tension. Now, using a brush, apply some neat Mod Podge to the diorama. Gently scatter the Woodland Scenic Snowflake onto the base and fix it using the fixing solution. I actually find a dropper is easier. This is where a bit of patience comes in. Now let the whole thing dry and repeat to build up the effect. Once dry, you can fix the model in place, but you may need to scrape away some of the snow. Then you can apply a mist of the wetting solution to the area where tracks or footprints are made. Using the mixing cup, put a small quantity of neat Mod Podge and slowly add the snowflake material. Using a coffee stirrer, blend it together until you have a very thick paste. Now, you can apply this to these areas to replicate disturbed snow. For extra realism, add a drop of acrylic brown paint to indicate a slushy, churned up ground. When dry, give it a quick shot of the fixing solution to fix everything in place. So that's it. My tips on snow effects. If it's a Hoff snow scene or a polar ice cap you want to achieve, I think you'll be delighted with the outcome. As always, I'll upload the usual details and some pictures onto our socials and website. Go on, give it a try and have some fun, and I'll see you on the next Wongi's Wisdom. Ta-ta!
Please support veterans, service personnel and blue light services through scale modelling therapy. Visit modelsforheroes.org.uk, where plastic, paint and purpose come together.
Right then, Benchmates, we're joined by a modeller whose plastic productivity under camera lights puts most of us on the pod to shame. If you've ever found yourself glued to YouTube at 2 a.m, watching someone paint a cockpit like it's a work of a Renaissance artist, odds are you've stumbled across Mach Models. Run by Luke Flynn, it's a channel that's quietly become a go-to to clean builds, slick edits, and a refreshingly honest approach to the hobby. Luke's been at it for around 3 years now, and he'll be the first to say he's still learning every step of the way. His comfort zone, 1/48 scale, but he's no stranger to pushing it to 1/72 or 32nd when the mood strikes. Subject-wise, he's an aircraft person through and through, but as he puts it himself, and I quote, "If it looks badass, I'll build it." From crisp cockpits to weathered warbirds, Luke built a community around skill, style, and staying curious. So let's find out what it's really like to model under the spotlight of the camera lens. Luke, welcome to Beyond the Box Art.
Hiya, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Okay, let's start at the beginning. What got you into scale modelling in the first place? Was it a kit, a relative, or just a rainy Sunday?
So I like to think that this probably all comes back down to my granddad. Throughout my youth, I was definitely pulled along RAF Hendon on most weeks when my granddad and myself had the chance. So just being surrounded by aviation has always kept me somewhat in a grasping distance of the scale modelling hobby. But it was really over lockdown, interestingly, when I had an abundance of time that I was stumbling through all of these weird little niche hobbies, and I just went on Amazon and ordered my first kit. So that's probably what got me into scale modelling in the first place, an abundance of time.
Okay, so what was the first model you remember building, and the first one that you thought, I'm actually quite proud of this?
So the first model I actually built was the Revel 1 to 144th scale Typhoon, which was actually quite good of a kit, to be completely honest. It went together in an afternoon and I was quite happy with the result. But the one model which stands out for me, where I stood back and I was like, whoa, this actually looks quite good, was Tamiya's F-15C in 1 to 48th scale. And this was the first time I used an airbrush on a model, and it did all the pre-shading and spent hours going around it, and it just popped out and it looked a little bit like all the builds you'd see online. So that was the first one where I was like, you know what, this actually looks quite good.
That model's a really superb kit. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. What made you decide to start Mach Models on YouTube? Was it planned or a happy accident?
It was slightly planned and a slight accident. So really all I was looking to do was create a bit of a log of all of my builds and also share my building process with a couple of friends and relatives who potentially I don't see that much or just were quite interested in the general build. And what better way to show them what I was doing than make a YouTube video on it? I had originally, a couple months prior, created an Instagram page, which I was slowly posting on, and I didn't have a huge following on it. I think a couple hundred followers, but it was kind of 3 months into it where I kind of bit the bullet and I made my first YouTube video, which was the 1 to 48th scale Airfix Hawker Hunter, which was, it was definitely, now looking back on it, a cringeworthy video, but I was very happy that I took the plunge and actually and went for it.
We know that feeling. Just listen back to episode 1.
I watched that video today, and then I watched your last one, the P47, and the difference in your modelling is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it in all aspects. It's the video editing, the modeling itself. It is a crazy difference.
So jealous of your airbrushing skill as well. And I used to think I was pretty good at it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Wongy.
How's your modelling technique evolved since you started filming the builds? Do you find yourself doing anything differently for camera as you would do off screen?
Yeah, I think definitely. I'm quite lucky in the YouTube sort of scenario in I was only properly modeling for about, I think it was about 8 or 9 months beforehand. So I hadn't picked up any kind of proper habits, which I'm sure all of us model makers do have, before I started having to take into account, lighting, camera angles, what do I want to film, how do I want to film it. So a couple of the more YouTube related habits and things which I've picked up is this incredible ability to not actually look at my model when I'm modeling, instead looking through a very small screen. So that is one of the major skills which I've picked up. But also, I think everyone can usually agree when they look through the videos that the general modeling skills itself in all aspects, whether it be the build quality or the airbrushing or the weathering, they've all slowly improved over the 2.5 years I've been doing this now.
I just can't believe you've only been at this for like less than 3 years. That's the thing. I am still a learner.
It's amazing to see the videos. When you see the videos, you can actually see the improvement as you go along. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, really good. Yeah, you get.
Do you find yourself going back and actually looking at your older vids to actually see what you've actually done and how you've actually progressed?
Yeah.
And thinking of ways you can actually progress from that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's quite funny. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking through references on YouTube on how to paint olive drab, and my P51 video came up, and I was like, I completely forgot how I painted this. So just rewatched my own video, which sounds very egotistical, but it was actually great to look back through some of the videos to either cringe or to pick up things which I might have lost in recent videos. Although I've got loads of documents and things which kind of lay out what I want in each video. Sometimes they get lost through the cracks. So it's great always to refresh myself on what have I done before, what videos have done well, which haven't done well, and why that was. A couple of the videos, for example, I think I did 2 BF109s back to back. The first BF109 did really quite well on YouTube, and the second one a couple of weeks after didn't do so well. So from that, I took out, let's not do a BF109 twice, because people probably don't want to see the same kit built in 2 videos. So it's all of those sorts of small little things which you maybe wouldn't think about doing that you then incorporate into the videos. So I've done this twice now. I think I did, instead of doing 2 separate videos for the 2 main Hornets, which I did, I just cram them to one video. The viewer doesn't get too bored, but I also get to do what I want to do within a project, if that makes sense.
So in terms of your filming, do you script it out of what you're going to say, or the actions of what you film?
No, not at all, really. I usually just film absolutely everything. And then throughout the period of, I think I usually spend in the region of about 20 hours editing a video, putting it together, through then sifting through all the content and picking what bits I want out. And then the voiceover itself is, I'll get all the clips which I want, which I think are most important and the viewer will probably want to see. And then once that's all put together, I'll go through it all in one swoop and do the voiceover. Not in one take, of course. There's lots of cussing and swearing when I don't say what I want to say, and lots of it's definitely a process editing, but really rewarding at the end of it.
What's your average build time?
Oh, it really depends, because of course I'm sure some people view me as the speedy person on the Airfix releases, as that is what has got quite a lot of my fame over the last 2 years. I can build fast, but I can build slow. That's what I like to say. I think a good example was when the Edward bloody 100th came out. I built that within 4 days from start to finish. So
really?
Wow. Yeah, it was a lot of late nights, but everything put together, I think that was about 34 hours of building.
So when you're building of an evening, are you getting carried away with yourself, and next thing you know, you look at the clock and it's 3 a.m?
Well, it came out in this weird kind of almost twilight period of my life last year, where I'd just finished some exams from school and I was kind of handed all of this free time. So it'd just be wake up, get on the bench at 9 a.m. and, go all the way through to like 3 or 4 a.m. some nights. It was just absolutely ridiculous.
You see, that's where I went wrong. I ended up with my mates in the park and a couple of cans of Stella. And it all went wrong.
Yeah, no. So that is why I can build them quite quickly, or I can't build them as quickly at the moment because I'm now unfortunately employed. Very sad.
Welcome to the real world.
I know it's awful, but yeah, that is probably an average sort of build time in a new release. But for the P40, for example, I think I spent about a month and a half on it, and I don't have an exact sort of time, but it was every single night doing about 3 or 4 hours. So
I noticed on your spray jobs, I mean, they're quite complicated, aren't they? You know, your black basing, and then you do the base, you know, once you've done that, and then you kind of muck it up, you get all kinds of different colors on it, and then you go over it again in the top coat again to sort of, I don't know, what, join it all together, make it all become one. How long does that kind of take you?
So on these new modern Edward kits, it takes absolutely ages. I'm sure everyone here knows the rivet and the surface detail is to die for, but if you paint how I want to paint, it is an absolute nightmare. So the painting is usually the longest part. I think on the top surface of the olive drab on the P40, it was definitely around about the 18-hour mark. And then for underside, I think it was only about 12 hours. But as you've highlighted, it is going through each individual one. And there's many a time where I don't like it and you don't see it on camera, and I go back over it, you know, reprime it and retry it again. And there are some stages which are missed out in the video because I really don't think anyone is too interested in seeing me use an airbrush up close for like 20 minutes just picking out little rivet lines.
They were my favourite bits, because I was watching some of those and I thought, bloody hell, how was he getting that line so fine? Yet your airbrush looked like it was quite a distance away from the model, yet the lines you were getting were amazing. And I wouldn't mind. I've got an airbrush that's supposed to be 5 times better than yours, but you're getting 10 times better. Better results.
Yeah, to be honest, my whole painting did change when I did get the Mr. Hobby Pro Convoy. It was just, for me, it is one of those brushes. I'm sure everyone has it, where they find a brush which just works for them. It's very much separated between Harder and Steenbeck and the rest of the world.
Yeah, I noticed you had a Harder on the first one you had was the Harder and Steenbeck, wasn't the Infinity?
And I just didn't manage to get on with that as a brush. But then the Mr. Hobby Pro Convoy, it just seems to work so well. As you say, I can get it so fine. It just does what I want it to do in a brush, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Okay, Nevs.
Could you talk us or walk us through what the filming setup looks like for you? Are we talking like Pinewood Studios, kind of having different rigs, ring lights, whatever? Or are we literally looking at clipping your phone to a lamp, using a bit of tape, propping things up? What is your typical filming setup?
Yeah, so my filming setup has definitely evolved over the years as well. It's one of those things which has changed with me as my skills progressed. But first started out, it was just my phone and, as you say, literally taping it to the side of a pole. There was no tripod involved, no nothing. It was the most janky looking setup ever, and there were many an instance where my phone did actually slip and slide and fall onto a model. So if you saw any dents on the wings in any of my earlier builds, that is the reason. The secret is now out. But over the past year, it's been quite linear, my setup, and you usually see that in the videos. I still use my phone, and if anyone is wondering, it is iPhone 16 Pro Max, so it is one of the higher up sort of Apple phone, so it does have a good camera on it, and that is in unison with a DJI Osmo. If anyone knows what that is, it is pretty much DJI's kind of smart tripod. It is a battery powered tripod, which doesn't sound very smart, but it acts a little bit like a gimbal as well. So it has auto leveling. You can muck around with the angle of it just by using almost like a joystick sort of controller. It is much easier to use. So that sits right in front of me on the desk. And then I have, I believe it is 3 main lights. You might have seen them on Amazon or around there, like the bar lights. I have them strapped to the side of my desk. One is directly over, and then you have 2 on either side. And then I also have a ring light, which sits behind it as well. So that is the general lighting setup. Many people ask about the background in my video. How is it so white and crispy. It is just a big roll of A1 white paper, which I seem to replace almost every 10 minutes because I'm not very clean. So that is the general setup at the moment. Everything else is very standard in a modeler's setup. You know, I have the nice little eBMA hobby, you know, sort of tool and bits stands over there, and all of my paint, and of course my airbrushes just sit under the desk and on the side. So that is the general setup.
I know you talk about like the ring light, and it probably makes you look a bit like a biblical angel having it behind you. But in terms of the lighting at the side, taking the filming out of it, does it actually help in terms of just cracking on with modelling? Does it help with seeing the details?
No, not at all, because then I have a huge camera in front of me. So it's, I think I mentioned it earlier, I do not see any of the stuff which I'm modeling in front of me. It's all done directly through the camera. So it is all there purely for the viewer and creating a more higher quality of video for you to watch. But I'm sure if there wasn't anything in the way, it would have a drastic impact on my modeling skills, yes.
It must be like building under a microscope.
It is, but you lose any depth perception.
Yeah.
Like at all. It is, I've found myself trying to put, it was actually, what was it on? It's on my current build actually, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but the joystick, I'm trying to put it in and I've actually completely missed the cockpit tub and it's gone around the back and I'm like, oh my God.
Cut.
So yeah, it was like, oh, redo that one.
So you've said about that's one of the challenges that you're facing, this depth perception. And is there anything else that you didn't anticipate before you started putting the models on film that other viewers that don't have these YouTube channels, that perhaps they don't anticipate that you have?
There's many different quirks to having a YouTube channel. I'm sure any of your favorite YouTubers will tell you that. One which caught me by surprise is the incredibly sort of in-depth editing process itself. It's all well and good, you know, building the model and, you know, having all of your just pressing a button and filming, because that's how I know how to model. So it works fine for me. But then bringing it into my editing software and seeing that I've now got, you know, 18 hours worth of footage, which I need to try and condense down into usually about a 25-minute video. It is quite a daunting task, and it's something which I've tried to prove over the years for the viewer, being selective about what content you want to see. So that's one of the main challenges which I personally have. Another one is subject selection. It's a lot of people just think being a YouTuber is well and easy, but it's selecting the subject which the viewer seems to want to see is very, very important. It is probably overlooked incredibly and rightfully so. I mean, I'm sure you look on YouTube and it's like, oh, great, you know, he's done a Phantom, he's done an F-18, he's done a P-40. That's great. But I think on the whole, we all put an incredible amount of thought into our lineup and our build schedule and what is going to keep it diverse and keep you, the viewer, engaged with our personal content.
Have you ever thought about doing multiple videos on the same build? You know, there's a lot of guys out there that do, you know, like P40 part 1, part 2.
For me personally, I'm not a fan of the part videos. If I've clicked on a video, I want to see that model from start to finish, and I can pick and choose what I want to see in it. Well, it's almost like, you know, you're watching your favorite TV show and you're really enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you've got to wait another 2 or 3 weeks until the next part comes out. And for me, I know it annoyed me when I was watching YouTube. So personal preference, I have never wanted to do that on YouTube, just in case it causes an inconvenience to the viewer.
Tim,
you obviously consider your audience, but I notice you tend to do 148 upwards. Is that a conscious thing? Is it helping you with, does it make a better video? What's your decision there?
So scales, I think have quite a big impact on how good a video or how well a video does perform. The bigger scale stuff, honestly, usually always does well on YouTube, and that's usually because there's a lot of people who love to see the bigger scale of stuff, and it also appeals to a wider audience in terms of you have potentially the non-model makers who think, oh, that's a big thing, big scale model, I want to watch that. However, I think popularity wise, in a general consensus, 1/48 works for me. It's what I like to model. It's a good scale for me in how my airbrushing and how I like to model. And I think it also provides the most varied subject matter. If you think about a scale model, I think the vast majority of them are 1/48. So it just opens up my sort of horizons for what I can potentially build, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. I was looking for what kind of things people say as a criticism. I was looking through the comments and couldn't find much of a criticism. So what do people usually say?
Oh, goodness. There's been such a wide breadth of different comments on the channel. Some amusing. One of my personal favorites was, don't get paint on your lovely feminine hands. I was in shock. I'm not too sure what to take of that one, but the general, to go back to your question, before I go on about my secret hand lover who obviously watches the channel, I think the general criticism which I get is potentially inaccuracies on the models themselves. And you will always get on every video someone who disagrees with how I paint, how I model, and they believe that it is not how they would do it. And that is completely fine. I'm always open to people commenting on their opinion, because a lot of the time I have gone back to them and taken it on board. More geared towards the video side of things rather than the modeling, because I think everyone knows how they want to model, and it's hard to have external people influence that. But in terms of when I'm trying to produce a product for the viewer, I will definitely listen to how they want to have that product received.
I think that comes across in your commentary, because I won't say self-deprecating. I can't even say it's self-deprecating, but some of the comments you make, you say, if I did this again, or I may have done this a little bit too much, and you don't hold back on that. Is that a conscious thing?
Yeah, definitely, because in my eyes, I've only been doing this for 3 years. I mean, I still very much view myself as quite a newbie into this, and I'm not going to go out there and say, this is the way to do it. This is, written in stone. This is how you have to make this model. I'm very much in all of my content saying, look, this is the model which I've got. If you've got the same model, that's great. This is how I've taken it on. Take from it what you want. I'm never, ever going to say, this is the exact color which you want to use. This is how you do that. It's just, it's unfortunately not how I want my content to come across.
I've noticed you're not afraid to use your own colours.
No, not at all. I mean, I've just used RLM82 to do bronze green on a US aircraft. Dear God.
Oh, there'll be letters.
There was my favourite comment on your, as I was scrolling through, Luke. I'm still working out whether it was a positive or a negative comment, but they just said, extremely strong British accents. And that was it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've got somewhere on my phone. I take loads of screenshots of my favorite comments, which seem to be put onto it. And I'm sure I'll be able to find a bank of them somewhere with some very odd sort of statements. But yeah, everyone seems to comment on one thing or another.
Luke, get them all on a t-shirt, and that's merch for you, isn't it?
You know what? I like it. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I'd like to see you do, Luke, because I really like the way you contrast on your colours. I watched the 262 you did, and when I was flicking through some of your stuff, that instantly caught my eye, and I really like that. It's something I'm a fan of. Anything Fleet Air Arm, because that is a camouflage that is quite difficult to differentiate between the two colours in. You see so many models done, and you can't tell. It just looks like a dirty, mucky model.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to see you do something like a sea fire or something like that.
I recently did acquire Trumpeter's Barracuda, which has definitely floated my boat, even though it is such a weird looking thing. Yeah, no, I think I always seem to be drawn to the weird and wacky camouflages, as you saw through the 262. I mean, that is the most...
Yeah, a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's just, for me, I mean, you might be able to tell painting that is what I enjoy in modeling. It is what I seem to get the buzz out of. So naturally pushing myself in that side of things seemed to be a much easier, much more enjoyable thing to do.
It was my thing as well. But whereas you are quite happy to use something that looks like the right colour or it's in the ballpark, I do the other thing. I'm the opposite. Yeah. I agonise over trying to get the correct colour, and I shouldn't.
I used to be like that, but then I was looking at my models and I'm thinking, oh my God, the amount of different colours I'm putting into this colour. There's no point in trying to get the exact tone, because how my models seem to come out, a lot of people say, as you said, contrasty. I like to say they're more saturated. It's more of a Spanish way of modeling, where the colors seem to go all over the place. So that is why I slowly strayed away from potentially using the correct colors.
If it looks right, it is right, as it's your representation rather than anybody else's.
No, complete opposite. By trade, I'm an engineer. So, but I am very much numbers and sort of geometry. So I have no idea where this artistic flair's come from.
I think it's attention to detail, Luke. That's what it is. As an engineer, you got to get it right.
There we go. Yeah, I know it. Dear God.
On your F-35B Tamiya build, where did you get the idea to use the Liquitex ink to do the weathered?
Yeah, so that is such a weird little technique, which is so messy and so brilliant. But I took heavy influence, but adapted it slightly from someone who you might know if you're on Instagram. He's called Lufterum72. He does the most incredible F-14 I think I've ever seen in my life. And he's got a website and he's got a couple of books out and about. And he kind of went over, this is what he did, but he used multiple layers of ink. I just seemed to use one and it seemed to work quite well. So that is definitely where I got that idea from. I'm not trying to claim that one as my own at all.
Because obviously I watched the video and I was like, and then when obviously I carried on watching, I thought, I wonder where he's going with this. And then when you went over the top call, I was like, oh my God. And everything just clicked in, because it's like, how would you weather? Because an F-35B, especially, when you look at it, it's just plain.
Yeah.
But the way you've done it, it's made it weather, because the grey does.
That is just, that was the biggest thing. And I was putting off doing the F-35 for so long for that exact reason. But seemingly using ink patina was a really good way to do it. I think potentially, because the C's now come out, some people have been doing some incredible renditions of that with kind of the bronzy oil work on the kind of the humpy spine behind it. And that has been great. But I almost think it's a little bit overdone in areas, whereas this ink patina seems to give you a nice mottle throughout the aircraft. So yeah, no, I was very, very happy with how that one popped out, to be honest.
I was going to say, it was just something that was like, I've never seen that done before. And obviously when you go through it, and it just gives you that weathered effect, because most of the time they're sat on an aircraft carrier, so they do get weathered. And especially if you look at the US versions, they're absolutely battered. And they're obviously quite grimy underneath as well. But the RAF ones and the fleet turnaround ones aren't, because they're still fairly new. But yeah, I will be using that technique in the future.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, give it a go.
Okay, Mark.
What advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about starting a YouTube channel, especially in 2025?
I think I would make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Never, I think, in my opinion, start a YouTube channel with model making to try and get exposure, fame, or anything like that, just because you will put yourself and burn yourself out of the hobby so quickly. It is such a different twist on this amazing hobby to then start trying to document something which everyone here knows is done on such small sort of distances and tolerances. It is absolutely insane. So to try and then incorporate a whole nother hobby on top of that, it is very overwhelming for someone just starting off. But if you do want to do it, for, just to show your friends and potentially get some exposure if you want to, I'd say start with a very small project and then slowly work your way into it. Reach out to people who know how to edit and know about filming and that side of things. I honestly answer so many emails and messages about that side of thing, and I'm always happy to help. And just make sure you enjoy the hobby still. Just retain some enjoyment in this hobby, because filming can take it out of it very, very quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, well, the other thing I would like to ask is, so when you're doing your models for your YouTube, do you ever build anything for yourself? Something you just want to build and not bother? Oh, right. So everything goes on the channel.
Even if it is going awfully wrong, it will end up on the channel eventually at some point. They don't always necessarily come out in the right order, but sometimes I flip them around. I think the Hornets, they were definitely getting built and almost finished before the F-35, but the F-35 came out before, if that makes sense. So that I kind of flip them around just due to time constraints, or how I potentially want to keep the content diverse in that sort of essence. So I don't want to keep them.
I like the videos because it's warts and all, isn't it? It's good and bad, which is great.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And are there any kits or any subjects that you're dying to build once anything that's coming out that I'll get that?
Today actually was quite cool. The Qatari PRU Spitfire, that was like, wow, that looks really, really good.
Have you got any other ones?
I haven't actually. I haven't got around to building or getting them in the stores. So I'll have to try and get one of them. But there we go. Example A.
They are brilliant.
Yeah, they have looked absolutely brilliant. But other than that, I'm really quite eager about the Border Models Heinkel 111. That looks pretty darn good when that's going to come around in 35th. Yeah, big, but looks so cool. Other than that, I kind of just I do have a small sort of schedule lined up of what I expect to come out. Of course, new releases muck around with that so much, and they bash things out of the way. But yeah, on the whole, there's nothing which I'm really burning to build or get my hands on, which has been announced at the moment. Yeah, just keeping it going with the flow at the moment, I think.
Okay, Mike.
You've stated in your videos that you only use photo etch if it's essential. What was the reason behind this, and what accessories do you prefer or use in place, for example, like 3D printed resin?
Yeah, so I think photo etch is one of those Marmite things. I think you either like using it or you absolutely despise it. For me, I despise it. I can never get it to do what I want it to do, and my super glue always cures too quickly and it gets stuck to me, and I've had pitot tubes hanging off my ears at one point, and it's just all getting very, very fed up with photo etch. So that's usually why I don't try to use it. But I prefer to use some of the resin wheels, for example, are absolutely beautiful, and I can see that they are a significant advantage and improvement over the kit details. And that is my overall sort of motto. If I see that it can really heavily improve the model, then I'll be inclined to go for it. A big example of this is 3D decals. I think they are absolutely superb, especially the Quinta ones. So that's when I'll potentially be much more inclined to look to use one of them, and definitely over photo etch, because I think photo etch is way too flat.
Luke, you've obviously got the YouTube channel. What other outlets on social media do you frequently use, and how do people get in touch?
Yeah, so YouTube, of course, is my main sort of go-to place for long-length content. However, I am frequently on Instagram, and I believe if you just put Mach Models, I should pop up, as I am verified on there. So fingers crossed, Instagram will do their thing and point you in the right direction. So that is where, if you really want to get a hold of me super quickly and in a quite not unconventional, but that sort of way, you can just ping me a message on there and I will try my best to reply. I'm also on Facebook, but it is under my name instead of Mach Models. So Luke Flynn, if you want to friend me on there. You usually see me posting in all of the Edward groups and any of those sort of things about my recent builds, if it's an Edward kit or whatever the corresponding manufacturer is. You can also send me an email. If you go onto my channel and go to the About section, there is a Contact Me button. So that should ping my email address to you. So if there's a more formal thing that you'd like to get in touch about, or you potentially don't have Instagram, that is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay, and finally, what's currently on your bench, Luke? Can you give us a sneak peek of what's next for Mach Models?
Yeah, I can. I've been trying to keep it quite under wraps at the moment, but currently working on the UMA 1/48 AV8B 2+. So very lucky to have them send that out to me early. So I've been cracking along with that, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll be looking to get that one all done and dusted and onto the YouTube.
Nice.
I'll be watching that one, definitely.
So what do you reckon on that kit?
It is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. I really can't fault it, with the exception of potentially 1 or 2 inaccuracies, which I've personally even managed to notice, which is quite impressive even for me. My main one, which I seem to be able to see, is the fan itself is really, really small. It is really, really small. And I know I should have brought it up here, but I know the Harrier itself usually has that absolutely humongous Pegasus fan, and it looks absolutely tiny on the model. So I think that's a small inaccuracy, and apparently word on the grapevine is a couple of the lumps and bumps might be a bit too bumpy or lumpy. So other than that, for me, it builds incredibly nicely. There is an incredible amount in the box. There's 3D decals included in the box. There's full mask set. There's a small photo etch fret, which made me slightly want to cry, but I couldn't, because they don't supply a transparent HUD. So you actually have to use the photo, and they give you a little film for each of the individual ones. So it is a ball ache. I'm not going to lie, but you can definitely get through it. And the surface detail is superb. Some people have been saying it's quite clunky looking, but for me personally, I'm very much pleased with that as a model.
Well, I'm part of the old Harrier SIG, which is now branded Jaguar SIG, and I know those guys will be on it like a rash as soon as it comes out.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely superb as a kit. It's definitely one, if you like 1/48 scale and you like a fast jet, you need to have it. It is superb.
I'm just waiting for the RAF version to come out, because with those sprues.
That is soon, I believe. That is soon. So, because I've been talking to them, that is definitely on its way at some point.
Where do you model, Luke? Have you actually got a studio that's all geared up for it?
No, not really, not at all. It's a small desk downstairs in the office. It's probably no more than 5 or 6 feet long, and everything is crammed onto there, to my parents' disgust.
Okay, well, brilliant stuff, Luke. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time for joining us. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned sprue snipper, there's loads to take away from that chat, especially how the hobby can evolve into something bigger than just glue and paint. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to Mach Models on YouTube, give his builds a watch, and maybe even say hello in the comments. Luke, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully you got as much enjoyment out of that as we have.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really enjoyed that chat. I hope it's opened a little bit of a door into the YouTube sort of life of modeling. Whether you think that's definitely not for me, or I'll give it a go. I hope it's put a little bit of closure on that.
Well, now you've seen us, you understand why we're an audio-only podcast compared to what you actually do.
My feminine hands here.
And I've not got pretty hands neither.
No. Oh no, don't get them going. I'm going to get all the comments now.
Well, that's a wrap for episode 5 of Beyond the Box Art, where today we turned the tables and took a peek through the other side of the lens with Luke. Massive thanks for lifting the lid, Luke, on the world of visual content creation. Proof that even when the paint fumes settle, there's still plenty of room for lights, camera and plastic action.
Oh, God.
It's fascinating to hear how modelling for YouTube shifts your mindset, from planning builds that'll pop on screen to navigating the joys of editing gluey fingers and dropped parts. And whether you're a silent spruce snipper or someone tempted to hit record, we reckon there's something on Luke's journey for every one of us. So until the next time, when we are joined by Malcolm Childs and James Skiffins from Models for Heroes, and also the Just Making Conversation pod from Boulders.
Cheerio all.
Wongy.
60 parts or less.
Tim.
I'll see you next time.
Nevs.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Mark.
Bye, everyone.
And from myself, thank you for sharing your bench time with us and keeping your blade sharp, your references bookmarked, and your thumbs safely away from the CA glue. Goodbye. And why did you choose digital books specifically? Don't you say it, Boulders. I know it. That's going to be the outtakes.